Yeah, great.
Whoa, this ain't going.
Down the bottom, and
But I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. Well, hello, Bee Nation. I'm glad to have everybody on tonight. And if you're like me, this has been one of the most hectic weeks that I have ever had. So it's just everything's going on, everything. So get a little breakdown on what's going on for us is we've caught a couple swarms. We did a cutout underneath a double wide trailer. I don't suggest anybody try that. It's not a lot of fun. It's nastier than things. Let's see, what else did we get into? We've got a lot of hives to ship out this week. And today, I actually didn't even go into work. I kind of worked on getting my bee equipment ready. My supers, I'm not ready. I'm putting supers on everything. The flow is extremely strong right now, and I didn't have enough supers for every hive that I had. So I've been making those up. And, I run across those frames that are, frames from dead outs, frames that are just need to be cleaned up. And I probably spent 2 hours doing about 80 deep frames and cleaning them up. And I'm sitting there thinking, it'd just be just as easy to chunk that frame and just buy a new one. And I think, well, that's $4. Maybe I don't want to spend that kind of money. So I spent a couple hours doing 80 frames. It's a whole lot easier when that frame's clean. You can just pop your foundation in and go to the next frame.
$4 multiple times adds up quick.
It does, exactly. That's a lot of money. Well, you say 4 times 50, right? That's $200. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money.
Oh,
so, and then I use some of those frames for kitchen swarms also. So I made some up for some swarm traps to set out. So anyway, it was an extremely busy day. The honey is just flowing in. Me and Melissa was just talking. I hate this time of year because you get that buildup of honey on the edges, and every time you try to pull that frame out, you're breaking honey. It's going everywhere. The bee yard's doing really good. We actually extracted our first super of honey because we had people just dying to have some honey right now. So it's just been extremely busy. I'm sure everybody on the chat's got the same feeling. Got some questions for you guys as we go throughout the night to maybe help me out, maybe better understand some stuff. So we'll throw those in from time to time and ask the people in the chat. We did actually have to put in a extra ventilation in the observation hive.
Is that what that is on the bottom?
Yeah, right there on the bottom. And I think I'm going to have to put a second one. The honey flow is so strong coming into this colony right now that the window just gets absolutely soaked. I've actually last week. Yeah, it was wet last week. And I actually got a little fan laying here on the ground, kind of blowing up into that channel there to blow the air back out this way, out to the outside of the house. So this thing has probably increased almost double in size in the last 2 weeks. It's been incredible.
Now, have they built more comb also? It looks like the comb is further out towards that window.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see if I can get it up here so y'all can see. It has absolutely gotten big. Oops.
Yeah, the population has increased as well. It looks a lot darker around all that fresh new comb.
Yeah.
That was amazing how the last hive that you had in there just wasn't motivated to do much. and just really kind of stalling out. And then here we are, that one's really motivated to actually produce.
Yep. And that's one of the questions I have for the audience tonight, and is about what's better, a swarm or a split? And so you guys think about that. I'll bring that up here in just a little bit. I want everybody's opinion on it because my swarms are just blowing my splits away right now. It's amazing. So,
well, hold on. Let me ask you this. Let me see if you can define that a little more. What do you mean? What do you mean when you say better? Is there anything specific? You just saying a generalization?
So
or you
I did the splits. I've done early March splits, right? And they're just now about 5 frames. Okay. These swarms, like the swarms we caught about 3 weeks ago, are already 7 frames and drawing chrome like crazy. I mean, I've got one that I actually put a super on it today. It's up to 8 frames.
Wow.
And it's just booming. And that's a swarm from 3 weeks ago. So I feel like if I had to choose, I would make a colony super strong. One, that queen's going to be a better queen, right? Because it's a swarm cell queen, right? So they weigh a little bit more. And they're taking out the bees that are going to do that big work that needs to take place, building that comb and getting the colony ready. And they take all those resources out. So I almost feel like instead of making early splits, it would be better to do late swarms, and they would be better off. It's like when you go too early. It's kind of like it gets stunted. But the swarms are just blowing those splits right out of the waters. It just amazes me right now.
Now, did you say, are the swarms the same age as the splits?
No, the splits were done in March. And then the swarms were 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. And the 2 that I caught this week have almost drawn out the 5 frames. They're in nuke boxes. And they about drawn 5 frames out already.
Now, the splits that you did you feed them? Or were you just letting them kind of do their own thing?
I did feed them for about a month.
Okay.
But the pollen patty, I don't know that when I was putting it on it, whether they just didn't seem to want to take the pollen patties, which surprised me. I don't know if they were too old. They were last year's pollen patties. So maybe that's another good question for the audience is old pollen patties good to put on, but they didn't seem to want to take those pollen patties. And then the sugar waters, I was doing 1-to-1 sugar water. And once I seen that, they were starting to feel the combs out a little bit, I stopped feeding. So I only fed for about 2 or 3 weeks on those colonies.
Now, those splits you made, did you make them in the same yard as you split them from, or did you move them?
They stayed in the same bee yard.
So it's likely that all your foragers out of those splits went back to the parent colony then?
I would absolutely say so. Yeah. When I did my splits, I did take my queens out. I usually take my queen out of my split. I don't know how other people do it, but I try to take my queen out with 2 or 3 frames, at least 2 frames of brood and a frame of honey. And then I'll let them go from there. And then I let the other colony get all those foragers or any bees that return because they need as many bees as they can get. And I feel like my split needs that queen to continue to raise bees. So anyway, that's what I did.
So say what you put in your split and again, you put the queen and then what else?
2 frames of brood and a frame of honey usually, or a partial frame of honey. Okay. To get them going. And then 2 frames are usually just draw out combs for them to work on.
Yeah. So when you think about it, like swarms are motivated to draw comb, right? Because they're gorging before they leave. So they're going to be comb building, crazy bees when you hive them. So that would be why they're building up so much faster, or appear to be building up so much faster anyway than the nuke. Now, with the swarms, were those all mated queens were those mated queen swarms, or any of them virgin queens? Do you know?
I think one was a virgin queen because I couldn't find her today. And that was the one that happened this week. I didn't see a queen in there, which I wasn't really trying too hard. It was starting to come a little bit of rain, so I really didn't get back into the colonies to search them hard to see if there's queens. But one of the colonies the rest of the colonies did have queens, the other swarms.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So if
Yeah,
you're
so
wanting, if you're wanting comb production, like swarms are definitely the way to go, right? Because they want to build that comb, they want to get it going. The only issue with swarms is you don't know how old that queen is.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it might be gangbusters right now, but she may peter out here or be superseded shortly after she starts laying eggs, you know.
Right.
And laying like maybe her first round of brood. We've seen that plenty of times, like swarms that we've got, they'll supersede her shortly after she starts laying that first brood cycle or whatever. So you just
I do see that the next year also they tend to supersede that queen definitely the next year. Yep.
Yeah. So that would be kind of, I guess, one drawback of the swarm versus the nuke anyway. So
right.
But I bet that's one of the reasons why the swarm is growing so much faster than the nuke. They're more motivated to draw that comb out for you.
Right. And probably maybe some of the other thing is the fact that we had all that rain real early and they never could get going. Right now, finally the flow started, right? So any bees that are out there are just booming, you know. So all the colonies are doing great, even the splits. But seemed like they got stunted and really didn't get started really well. So.
Yeah. You know, I would point out too, when you're making a split, sometimes depending on what frames that you grab or gather, you're not getting a wide range, and unless you move that split to a different yard, you're not getting a wide range of certain aged bees, right? So you're going to retain nurse bees or young house bees, you'll retain those, but anything probably middle age or older, you may not actually retain those, particularly anything that is in a forage age, you won't retain those. So really, you always set those colonies back a little bit whenever, if you leave them in the same yard, you know all your forage force is going home. So like if you make a split, or if we do anyway, we always leave extra resources inside that split, particularly pollen too, because we understand and know that if the forage bees go back home, they are not going to bring anything back in for a short period of time until they can quickly graduate some of those bees to become foragers. Or, you know, like particularly the certain age bees that might be leaving in a swarm might be better comb builders. That 15 to 20-ish day old bee is going to produce more wax from their wax glands at that age. So, you know, I would say the same thing too that Melissa talked about. I don't know that I've ever, trying to think of anything that we've done this year. Anything that we've gotten swarm, I usually put usually one or maybe two drawn combs. Everything else is blank foundation. Like particularly the video that we had where that really large swarm, I didn't give them anything. I gave them a couple of drawn frames, and everything else we gave them was just blank deep foundation. It had 4 deeps on it, and all they're going to do for me this year is just draw comb. That's all they're going to do is draw comb for me. I mean, they'll be an established colony and be able to do well with that number of bees in there, but all I'm going to have them do is just draw me as many boxes of comb as I can get them. As soon as they start filling them up, I'm just going to start checkerboarding more frames in there and just get more drawn comb. And I'll have all that ready available for next year. So when we go to make splits, I'll have as much as I need to be introducing. Now I understand I'll be taking a sacrifice on any of our potential honey crop, but that's a gamble I'm willing to take on that too.
Well, how's the bees going in y'all's bee yard right now, Tom? How has your week been since we was on last?
So I've been into them a little bit, and I can see that where there's actually nectar flowing because we've had a few more fly days here in and around the St. Louis area than we had the last 2 weeks. There would be like a day of rain, and then it would start to clear up a little bit. But, you know, understand that most likely the nectar might have been washed out for a period of time. So they might have been bringing pollen back in pretty quickly after the rainstorm, but we weren't getting any nectar. Now I'm noticing we're having a few more fly days here recently, and I'm noticing nectar come in. And you can kind of tell by the glisten inside there. And we always give it that little shake test, flip it up. Let's see here.
Oh, you're back on, Tom.
Okay. Did I go out there for a second?
Yeah, you kind of paused for a few minutes.
Sorry
I
about
thought that was me.
I did too. I thought, whoa, I messed up here.
Sorry, we need to get somebody in here. This one.
Sorry, I'm trying to make dinner.
Yeah, we had to go ahead and let this guy in, Lee. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead.
Man.
Just messed the screen all up, huh?
Oh,
How y'all doing today?
doing good. What's
Good.
going on in your neighborhood, Lee?
Oh, not much lately. Just made it in from work, but I'm hoping to get out there this weekend and get some more honey pools. I got a bunch more boxes that were full wall to wall that just wasn't capped yet.
Hmm.
But I'm hoping if I get out there this weekend, it looks the same way. I'm just taking my refractometer, check the moisture content. If everything's good, go ahead and pull it. Because it's basically been like that for 2 weeks. I've had some boxes that they just ain't capping.
Do you have
Well,
a
it's
particular
definitely easy not to have to uncap it.
Say that again.
I said it's definitely easier if you don't have to uncap it.
Yeah. Well, I've had some before that I extracted was uncapped at 17%. And then I've extracted some that was capped and it was showing 19.5.
That's crazy.
So the one that was 19.5, I just ended up putting it in a bucket, throwing a warming band on the bucket and putting a towel on top. Warm that honey up. That way all the moisture could evaporate up through that towel, but nothing fall into it. And about 2.5 day period, it come down to 17%.
Yeah, that towel's a good idea. I never thought about that before.
Yeah. If you put the lid on it with that warming band, it's going to warm your honey up, but the moisture can't escape. So I just put a towel over the top with a rubber band. That way nothing falls into it, any dust or anything like that. But any moisture can still travel through that towel and escape.
Yeah. Hey, Lee, do you have a particular refractometer that you're fond of or just
Amazon special.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
right.
I had bought 2 of them because I heard some people say they could be a little off, but I mean, still you're going to calibrate it generally with extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
But I bought 2 of them. That way I could check both of them at the same time. And they were reading, I mean, just within a hairline of each other.
That's good.
You see what Sharon said? She has hers at 16.5%. Wow.
Yeah.
And they ain't capped yet.
That's getting pretty thick too, especially for not capped.
Yeah.
No
for sure.
doubt. Well, so
Do you guys feel like the taste of honey changes when the moisture level goes up and down? Like if you had some honey that was a bucket that was, let's just say 18.6, and then you're able to dry it down further, do you guys feel like the taste would change if you got it down to say 16.5?
I would say the taste is close to the same, but it may be more pronounced. It's going to be a little bit stronger taste because you have less moisture in there watering it down.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I think the thicker honey seemed to stick to my tongue a little bit better. Like it doesn't want to release off, and you really get a strong flavor of that honey. So I like my little on the high moisture content side.
That's like peanut butter being stuck to the roof of your mouth, right?
Yes, you got it. You hit it right on the head. Yes. So, Spanky, how's things going down in your neighborhood?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. I went in them yesterday and was expecting to put another box on that 10 frame, and they hadn't done nothing in the top box. They hadn't drawn it out anymore or done anything up in there, but there's loads of bees in the bottom box. I don't know why they're not building out none. I might have to feed them to get them to build it out.
Yeah, you'd think with the flow going on, they'd just be building like crazy. I mean, most of them, all my hives are. Just a couple aren't.
That swarm we caught in that 10 frame, they're about done building that 10 frame out.
Ain't that something?
So, I mean, it's just weird.
Yeah, I do like the swarms. I tell you, if I had a way of catching every swarm that come out of my colony, they'd all be swarms. So, whole lot less work on me if they didn't fly up into a 20-foot tree that you try to have to get them out of. So.
You could be like me a couple years ago. You back your truck up, throw a 12-foot extension ladder in the back, stand on the top with another 12-foot pole, and try to get them out.
Right.
Or you call a gentleman like Lee out there and have him bring out a big tower, a big crawler crane, and then you can get up there as easy as you want to be.
Yeah, no doubt. So I got a question for everybody in the chat tonight. So do you feel like your honeybees, I know most people say they prefer one tree or one location when they swarm out, but is there a certain tree that you feel like will collect a swarm faster than another tree? So would you say a locust or a cherry? What does everybody think about that? Is there a certain tree that you feel like will collect your swarms better than other trees?
I've heard a lot of people say pine trees tend to catch more, but I can't think offhand anytime I found one in a pine tree. I've had one in a tallow tree here. I've had one in a blueberry bush and one in a small oak tree and then a plum tree.
Yeah, mine like Keith here. Mine goes to a red cedar that I have in my bee yard, and there's a cherry tree that they tend to fly into, and it always seems to be those two trees. Now, maybe it's the location of my bee yard, I'm not sure, but those two trees they tend to prefer.
Mine go to different trees. They don't go in the same tree.
Oh.
I've noticed before fruit trees or particularly cedar, but we have a lot of cedar in several of our yard areas. And which is really nice because often when they're in the cedar, they're not way up in the tree. It's an easier grab for us.
Right. They don't tend to get inside the tree either. It's kind of on the outside. So that does make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Looked like we were clicking the same one.
We was clicking the same one, DC's there. That's kind of an interesting thought. Maybe cedar for the oils, the smell that's coming from it. So
if I ever get a swarm, it seems like it's empty equipment that I have on my hive stands.
Man, I tell you what, Jonathan, you're just that's awesome.
That would be the easy way.
Yeah, I have one this year that was a big swarm. I've got hive stands. Mine are cinder blocks with 4x4s, and they clustered right up under a empty hive. Well, I tried to help them get in the hive, and they went back under. So I got some brood form in that empty hive, and that anchored them in there. Then,
oh, there's Fred.
Your stands probably sound almost like mine. I used a concrete blocks on the bottom and then the cinder block. And let's see, then the 4x4s.
Yeah, similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that setup you got there, Leo. I got to set those nuke boxes up. I might try something like that. So
the reason I put the center blocks because if I got 4 or 5 boxes on one 12-foot 4x4, it's going to start bowing that center down and taking a chance of cracking and everything falling. So I put extra bracing under there. That way, once I start stacking supers, it'll handle the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I like it.
Yeah, I threw in pictures in the text there from yesterday of some of them swarms I looked at. I did a video on them. I just ain't put it up yet.
Yeah, one box you got there look like a time for room to be added, huh?
I put another 5-frame on them. I've been feeding them, and you can't see it, but on the right, that's a fat frame. They're covering it up. Where I moved them, the frames got a little disheveled, so they had a fat frame of honey in there. Well, honey, the sugar water. So I put another box on there.
It looks like they're drawing out your 3D printed ones pretty decent.
Yeah.
So that's one of those cathedral frames, and they're drawing them out really beautiful. You notice they're leaving those openings in the sides open. They're not closing them. So those run the whole length of the box, so they don't have to make holes in the comb. They've got their own little highways up at the top to go through.
Now, on your green ones, are they drawing out actual drone frame cells?
So
Or a
those
mix?
back at the feeder. So those were the first frames that they focused on, and the bottom they actually I got to watch them whenever I put food in there. They didn't even draw on the foundation first. They drew at the bottom of the foundation down, and then they went back up and finished the foundation. So they drew out normal worker. You can actually see a little bit down there at the bottom. And then they at the top they're doing honey on the drone foundation. But there's not hardly any drone cells in there. It's mostly just brood.
I'm back.
Yeah, so there it is spread out.
There's like good population in it.
You can see all the bees. That's why there's so many bees on the front of that box. That's why there's that big old handful of bees, is because they filled up the box.
Now that entire hive is 3D printed, Spanky.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's got screws in it, and it's got fishing line in the frames. I did fishing line because I like having something in there to support it. But the foundation, I 3D printed that because it's custom for the frames. The frames are 3D printed. The body's 3D printed. You know, all that's 3D printed. And I mean, they seem to like it.
Look like they're doing a good job in it.
Yeah, they've already finished all the frames.
Sure does look good, Spanky, and you know, I like the pictures that you sent. It's amazing seeing how they're filling that little colony out like they are. So,
Yeah,
you definitely are talented to make those little bitty miniatures. So, yeah, I can't wait to get my little horizontal out and maybe get me some bees in it. So, quick question for Ricky:
yeah.
Are the bees above your head still doing okay? Fred, I've had all kinds of moisture issues with this little colony, and I've added an extra air vent at the top. I have recently added an extra air vent at the bottom, and the moisture is from the honey flow has created just a little bit of mold in this area right up here. So I've actually got a fan going in this area. So I'll bring it up so everybody can see it. It's on the chat tonight. We looked at it earlier.
Look like they got several new combs drawn out in it.
Yeah, they're doing really good. It's just that moisture in there. I don't know. Maybe Fred's got some suggestions. I don't know how to get that moisture out of it because of that angle in the roof. I think it's causing a little bit of problems. And I think DC made a good comment, or somebody made a good comment. Why didn't I move the colony down where the entrance was at, which is this way? And when I put the cones in there, I put the queen in that corner. So
now you
anyway,
said you just added that this week, though, right?
Yeah, I added this vent this week. That's really that's doing the trick, and I want to add another vent right here in the middle to help with some airflow out. So yeah, but any suggestions? You know, DC made some good suggestions about maybe going ahead and putting a board across there so that they're not getting direct sunlight all the time also. So that's something that I'm working on besides everything else. So, but yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, and it shows me maybe even in my horizontals need more ventilation after seeing this thing, how it's holding that moisture from the honey flow. So
Ricky, most of the horizontals that you are building, do they have the bottom screens or not?
I'm pretty much trying to push everybody into the screen bottom boards. So far, I haven't had anybody complain about moisture issues with the screen bottom boards. So I have had some people in the South that has said they're getting some moisture content in their colonies. So, you just suggest tapping a hole in the bottom of the hive with a vent and even adding a hole in the top inner cover of the hive. So, different places are different, right? The moisture content that I'm getting up here is definitely going to be different than what they're getting in the South, that high humidity that they're getting down there. So,
so far, the horizontal hive that I got from you, I hadn't had any moisture issues in it.
See,
I haven't noticed any in ours either.
I can't pinpoint it down to what's causing it. So, but definitely don't want someone getting any mold growing in those colonies. So,
tell you what, I have.
Yeah.
This is the wireless part here, but I got 3 transmitters for this thing, and I'll put one in the middle of the hive and then one on each end, and try to get a humidity reading for you, see what it's doing different times of the year.
That would be great.
That's what you got, that mini horizontal.
Yeah, I got that mini horizontal that thank you, baby, for me. So yeah. Well, before we get any farther, let's get our special guest out here, Jonathan Bennett. Been a real good friend of mine for quite a while. If you guys don't know, he is in a wheelchair. We did the disabilities with Justin Ruger last week, and him and Jonathan used to have a podcast together there for quite a while. We actually did deliver a horizontal hive that rotates to Jonathan's place a little while back. He's always been a pleasure to talk to. His mind, I think, runs faster than mine does when it comes to beekeeping. Jonathan, if you don't mind, talk to us about how you got into beekeeping and kind of, maybe the struggles you face, being a little bit disability. But I know you always find a way to get into your bees. When I got there, your bee yard looked really good. I'm like, wow, my bee yard don't look that good, and I feel bad.
No, I've got a lot of used equipment here and there strung out. It's kind of cluttered, but I've always thought beekeeping be kind of neat. This is my 4th season in it right now, but what kind of got me, actually pushed me into getting into it, was I seen the flow hive, and I thought, well, that'd be something I can do. Harvesting it wouldn't be that hard, but the bees kind of had a different idea there. They were never using flow frames for me, so I use traditional Langstroth equipment and got a few different long configurations along with your hive there.
You've got a hive from Dr. Leo Shushkin also that you're running. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I've got a Dr. Leo hive. My bees that I had in that last year never did really thrive, and trying to get it repopulated this year. I've got a package that's supposed to be coming. It's been in Kansas City since 17th, I think, is the last scan I had on that, so I don't have much faith of them making it here. I've got a top bar hive too that I'm trying out this year as well. Part of the reason why I've got so many variety of different hive configurations is kind of finding what works for me. Traditional Langstroth, it's pretty easy to get different equipment for it, but the long hives are really easy for me to work. That hive that I got from you, I can be in and out of that in no time do an inspection.
Right.
Whereas with a traditional one, I've got to lift them pretty well one frame at a time. I have a wagon out of pull with me. I'll have an extra box, and I'll just transfer frames into that as I do my inspections.
Does somebody help you a little bit, Jonathan, as you're in your bee yard, or do you pretty much do everything by yourself?
I pretty well do the management myself.
Wow.
whenever we do harvest hunting, my family does help, and then I'm mentoring for Hives for Heroes too. And my mentee last year, her and her husband came and helped do honey last year, and me and my mom and grandma, we never got done in the time we did with them. They came and put in probably 12 hours that day, and we got it all done. And it took us several weekends to get done what we did. I don't think I'll have that problem this year. I don't know that I'll have a big surplus of honey this year just because of weather. And I did split everything down pretty thin this year too, trying to introduce some virgins, and I don't know if I'll get anything built up to make much honey or not.
Well, I tell you what, it does take a little while to get them going. A lot of times it seems like, especially when you're doing virgins, because they still got to go out on their maiden flights and get back, and kind of that little wait for the hive sets it back just a little bit. So, when we was there, if I'm not mistaken, your grandma, man, that's the handiest lady I've ever met. I mean, she was right there with us the whole entire time. We was working on your hive, and she was absolutely awesome. And we didn't quite have his hive set up completely, and we had to make a few changes when we got there. So, but and if we needed a tool, she was like, "Here you go, and here's do this." And she was right there with us the whole entire time. And I had a blast with your grandma when we got out there. So, and I think right there beside of my hive, if you see on the left side, that's Dr. Leah Shurskin's hive right there. I was pretty impressed with that setup of that hive. It looked pretty good, and I think it was maybe wax dipped also. So, really, really well built, actually.
How far away are you from Dr. Leo?
His warehouse is actually about a mile from me, as crow flies.
Yeah.
And then he offered, I don't think he's doing a whole lot of classes now, but in the town where I live here in Kabul, he was in all his classes, and there'd be people from every state in the country in our little town here.
Jonathan, do you remember when it was we come out there?
When you came?
Yeah,
I believe it was last Memorial Day weekend.
That's right.
Right out of year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What was you saying, Melissa? I'm sorry.
Oh, I think he talks at a lot of like homesteading conferences and things like that. Yeah. He'll do talks at those big homesteading conferences about treatment-free beekeeping and things like that.
Yeah. I'd like to go listen to him talk and stuff. I mean, I've caught some of his speeches and stuff, and I really admire him. And a lot of the people that buy off of me, they're always looking at his stuff also. So I sometimes get his customers saying, "Hey, where's my order at?" And I'm like, "Well, you've kind of got the wrong guy, And I'm sure he gets the same thing from my customers. So.
Well, because isn't his thing like horizontal beekeeping or something like that? Your horizontal bees, so you probably do get a lot of like misspelled or Google searches or whatnot.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's definitely a talented man. He studied bees for a long time. So, I don't always agree with everybody's concepts. There's a couple of things I don't agree with him, but and I'm sure there's things that people don't agree with me always. But I think he's a great guy. I really do, and he's just like everybody else that just wants to help beekeepers out. So I like Dr. Leo, to be honest with you. So
you're gonna beekeep how you're gonna beekeep. I'm gonna beekeep how I'm gonna beekeep, and he's gonna beekeep how he's gonna beekeep, and the world still goes round and round.
That's correct. And that's the fun thing about it, is the way Rick keeps bees doesn't have to be the way Melissa keeps bees, and the bees will still do fine, right? So, and the way Jonathan has to keep bees in a special way anyway, because he's kind of disabled, so he has to do things a little bit different than what we do. So, I've got to ask this, Jonathan: have you ever been in a colony and they got hot on you and you in that wheelchair because you're able to get away from them, or you never had that problem?
I go full suit, but sometimes they do get me through the suit.
Really?
I had some Russian bees that I tried out this last season.
That's right.
when they built up, they got pretty hot, and one of them got me through the suit this spring and got me good. I'm trying to get away from them hot genetics, though, and just because I do mentor, I don't want to turn off somebody that I'm mentoring from wanting to get into beekeeping.
And you've got some Succobees queens coming in. Is that not correct?
It's from Two Rivers. It was mainly the Caucasian that I was interested in getting, and he didn't have quite enough when he shipped them, so I got a few of the Carniolans too.
Right.
So I'm hoping to get a decent return with them.
Well,
So
you got
all those nukes that we had brought up for the EMBA. They were Italian Carni Cross, and those were the gentlest bees that I have ever worked. And Tom was getting into one of our hives last week. He's like, maybe we do have some spicy bees. Like, I think our bees are just normal, and those bees are just really chill. So he's like, maybe we should graft off some of those Carni, Italian Carni crosses. So I think I'm going to do that here in a couple of weeks. Try doing some grafting off of those guys and see what we get and whatnot.
I need to learn how to graft. Ricky, whenever you're here, you remember the one that I had stacked? I don't know. I think it was 5-6 boxes high.
Yep.
That queen is laying like crazy this year too, and really producing big amount of bees. And I've took a lot of brood from her, and she keeps laying and easy going queen.
Yeah. And that's what you got to do. You got to pick those colonies that you get those good genetics. That if that's a good producing queen, more than likely her offspring is going to be good producing, or going to be more on the gentle side. I had to do splits with all hot colonies this year because that's all I really had left, and I was waiting for my Two Rivers queen to come, and then I was just going to replace queens as the season went on. But Ricky, you have not yet, Brian. I haven't yet. So I'll be honest with you, Brian. My wife sent me a message, and you can carry queens on you. Did y'all know that? If it's to a country that will allow you to do it, but you have to declare them. But you can actually carry the queens with you onto the plane. So that's
so. Right after the live last week, Tom had somebody texting him. Did he tell you this?
No, I haven't heard this yet. Go ahead.
So right after the live last week, Tom had somebody texting him that I guess his cousin or uncle carried queens or a queen or some bees. I don't know, at least a queen or whatever, onto a plane, bringing it to another country. And he got flagged as a terrorist because because he didn't declare it, and they were worried that he would release the bees inside the plane. So you might want to really look into that before you get onto the plane with your contraband bees.
Yeah, well, I would definitely declare them, and they had also suggested you put them in a cooler with a hot water bottle to keep them warm on the flight. So I don't know if I'm going to take queens. I would definitely rather ship them there and just get them when I get there. So but bees in a cockpit would not be fun, and I would not be people would absolutely hate me if some got loose.
Oh yeah.
Ricky, you mentioned Sue Kobe. I believe she didn't bring live bees, but I believe when she brought those genetics to the United States, she brought the semen on a plane with her. I don't know if she declared it or how she got it across, but that's how she got a lot of that genetics back over here, I think.
It's interesting. Yeah, because she got those genetics from overseas, right? Is she? Yeah.
I think a lot of it came from Georgia and Russia and over in that area.
Yeah. So, and that's what I want to get to what Melissa's talking about. I want to get those gentle bees, just what you talked about, Jonathan, because if I get people coming to my bee yard, the last thing I want them to do is get out of their car and being attacked by my honeybees, and they haven't even gotten around my hives yet. That's just not the feeling you want people to have. So.
You got to ease them into the mean bees.
Yeah.
Is that how bad yours are?
These are pretty bad. Yes, pretty bad.
You might need to graft off the ones down here.
Yeah, I've got another gentleman that's got a Sukobe queen. It's Italian. I'm not a big Italian fan, but so I'm going to go and graft off of that queen coming up. Yeah,
I get
I'd like
on
some
these
of
all
that.
the time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Jonathan, you need to do some grafting, man, with those queens you got, and with that big colony. You definitely need to get in there and give it a shot. The worst case is you can be like me and put them in there and don't get nothing. And say, well, what did I do wrong? And just try to figure it out as you go along.
Yeah, last year I tried to do some splits with her, and I don't know if I done them too early or what, but I didn't get any return on any of them that I was put out from her. So hopefully get some grafts out of her.
Right. Yeah, I definitely would get you some before she gets too old, and then that hive finally collapses on you, or she swarms out, and you don't have no more of those good genetics. So,
God forbid she don't make it through the winter.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, she's made through 2 winters, so I hope to at least have another season out of her.
Right.
Brian Castle, you want some of the buckbass from Europe? Have Richard Noel smuggle you some here next Nobby.
Yeah, there you go.
See if
we'll get everybody in on it.
They'll be like, yeah, you know that Ricky Rourke for Horizontal Bees talking about smuggling bees? He's got people doing it everywhere now.
It's the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it.
Oh, Lord.
Brian, you mentioned a while ago that you were able to take bees on a plane. Was that an international flight or was that a domestic flight, though?
Yeah, it'd be funny if you had to go pick him up from the airport because he's been in jail, Brian. Was it you talking about Castle Hive, Brian, or are you talking about Flower Street?
Yeah.
Flower Street. Castle Hive. Oh.
Yeah, he mentioned he took bees on a plane. They didn't have any problem with them.
He said when he flew Southwest, they said no.
Oh. Well, when my wife brought that article up and showed it to me last night, and I'm like, are you sure this is an official okay through the airport? Because I don't want to get myself in trouble. Oh, wow.
You just picked the wrong airline.
Maybe it's the airline, whichever airline you're flying through, too. So,
a little fun fact about Southwest: they have a airport they landed in Branson. Well, I went to college. It's probably 5 miles north of where that airport is, and they had an aviation program there, and the little airstrip they call the aircraft carrier. Because there's a lake on one side and a highway on the other side. It just drops off on either side. Well, somehow they were able to land one of their big planes, a 737, I think. And you gotta look up the air traffic control traffic for that because it's pretty interesting. He said the pilot said, "I don't think we landed where we intended to here." I don't know how he was able to land it there.
Huh.
We are heading down that way tomorrow morning, Jonathan, down to Table Rock Lake and Branson area for the weekend.
Pretty neat
you doing
area
some
down
camping,
there.
Melissa?
No, Tom's sister and brother-in-law built a lake house down there year before last. And so we all used to go down there and rent condo space and whatnot. But they're like, we're just going to build a house down here. So everybody can just come stay at the house. So we'll go down there a few times a month or whatnot in the summer. They have a nice boat. We go wakeboarding and playing on the lake and whatnot, all of us. So we'll head down there tomorrow for the weekend.
You should just do some beekeeping. Skip all that fun.
We've been doing enough beekeeping. We've been doing plenty of beekeeping. Actually, June is going to be insane, I'm sure.
Wow. So, Jonathan, how many colonies do you run right now? I think last time I was there, you had like maybe 8.
Yeah, I combined some in the fall, and I went through winter with 5. I probably got, with all the new queens, if they all come back, I'll probably have 10 or 15, I'd say, at that time.
Oh wow, that's a lot. That's hard for most just regular backyard beekeepers with that amount of colonies. So
Yeah, it definitely becomes quite a bit of work whenever you get to have that many.
yeah, and let me ask you this question: did you get enough equipment from the expo to do all these splits and stuff, or are you gonna have to get new equipment now?
I bought some used equipment here and there locally, and I think I'll have enough boxes to have everything put in it.
Every time I go to one of Caitlin's conference, I'm like, I've got enough stuff, I'm good. And then every time the season blows up, it's like, gosh, I could have used another 100 frames, or I should have got this and I should have got that. And I always beat myself up when I go to those conferences and don't get those good deals. And it just blows my mind to get back home and say, oh, I wish I had gotten that. So
have you used that uncapping thing?
I haven't got a chance to use it yet. Ruth asked me about it. Because I was looking for my uncapping tool or my uncapping knife, and she said, "Didn't you just spend about $400 on an uncapper?" And I'm like,
"What did you get?"
What is that? What was that called, Spanky? Do you remember that uncapper?
Simple Harmonies.
Simple Harmony. Yeah.
We had one of those. We just sold it because we bought that license uncapper. I liked it. It was great.
Yeah, I just saw one on Facebook Marketplace the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My thing was I didn't have it assembled to nothing yet. So I'm like, I'm going to spend an hour or two building something so I can use it. And I'm like, I'm just not going to. I took a fork and broke the cappings off and spun it out. So I was like, I just don't have time to deal with it right now. And everybody wanted honey the next day. So I just did the best I could with it. So
that's pretty assembled.
That Simple Harmony Farms one, Tom had it mounted in our other uncapping tank. So I don't know if you have a picture of it or not. You can suddenly. So he had it mounted.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Me and Keith was talking about, he was headed to Miller's Bee Supplies. He said he's been there 3 times after the conference. So,
I mean, if I think if it wouldn't have been for like all the swarms and swarm cells and splits that we've had to make, we probably would have had plenty of equipment. But we just from Golden Bee, I think we said this last week, bought 40 bottom boards, telescoping covers, and 80 deep boxes from Daniel at Golden Bee, and we just waxed up those yesterday. But if it wouldn't have been for all those swarms and splits we had to make, we probably would have had plenty of equipment. But
so you guys are going to the Colorado State meeting?
Yep.
Oh my goodness!
So Brian, I guess, contacted us, last month sometime.
Yeah, something like that.
And asked if we'd be interested in speaking up there. We're like, sure, why not? So we're gonna head up that way and talk on sustainability, and I think do a little panel discussion on Brian's project he's doing with UBO.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So it'll be fun. And finally get to meet Brian in person.
That's right.
Keith's asking if you like that Simple Harmony uncapper.
Oh, that's what I was, the Simple Harmony uncapper in the tank. Do you have a picture of that? That's what I was asking about. But that picture that Lee had up there, that's all the stuff that we waxed up yesterday.
Well, that's actually not all of it. That's all of our stuff that we waxed up yesterday. I also went ahead and waxed up a handful of nuke boxes and a handful of other pieces of equipment for other people that we know that are on the board, as well as some friends that needed some stuff done. And also for the Great Plains Master Beekeeping Program that Melissa and I are a part of. One of the gentlemen who teach that class with us said he had some stuff, and I said, bring it out 100%. We'll wax dip it all. So we can hopefully preserve that equipment for years and years to come for many, many different people coming through to be able to utilize that equipment and save money.
That Simple Harmony Farms uncapper, I guess is what you're asking about, Keith. It works better the thicker the frames are drawn out, but
yeah,
it works. It works okay on the skinny frames. I use that roller uncapper with the pokey things. So anything that doesn't get, we just roll over those and it's fine. But yeah, it works better on fatter frames.
I think Spanky said that Bruce had a video out on that uncapper. Is that not correct, Spanky? Did you say Bruce has a video out on that?
Somebody did. Somebody did. I can't remember if it was Bruce or not, but I do. Now that you say that, I do remember somebody saying something about it. I think it was Bruce.
Bob said he had a video.
Is it Bob? Yeah, there's the little spiky wrench.
Yeah. Yeah. That tool also works really well when time gets out of hand. Just FYI.
Yeah, Joey says Bruce does have one out. I think from that, someone had told me that he wasn't too big of a fan of that decapper, but
yeah, I think it was Bob down there at the meeting.
Okay.
I know. I liked it a lot. I thought it was great for.
I gotta have something. So that time, that's too time consuming to try to cut it with a knife, even a hot knife. So
now there it is. That was our old uncapping tank. That, well, you can tell them how you made it, but
yeah, it was a large stainless steel tank, and the thing was built really tough. And then that centerpiece that goes through there with the stainless steel that connects the front and back, that kind of mounts it in there. A friend of mine, I had to manufacture that. So if you look at, you'll see the frame that's kind of placed in there. I can get frames on both sides, on that side that Lee's zooming in on right there. And also, yes, in that space. And also the opposite side there that goes across, I can get frames across there too. So that centerpiece was made to be the appropriate size so that I can get frames across the whole thing. And I can't remember now. I'm going to say it was just shy of 40 frames that I could get inside that tank itself. And it has a drain hole in the bottom, which I had plugged up with a piece of tape for wintertime storage. That's where the drain was at.
So is that something you had built, Tom, for yourself, or is that something that you made yourself?
So the tank I bought here in St. Louis from the pharmaceutical company Bayer. They used to use large bladders inside of those tanks for mixing up pharmaceuticals. And it's a really high quality stainless steel. And then I repurposed it for that use of honey extraction. No pharmaceuticals were in there, FYI. All the pharmaceuticals were inside of a bladder that went inside the tank. And then I had that, we mounted it in there, and I had my buddy manufacture what I was looking for specifically. And it actually worked phenomenal. And we used it for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Just felt like we were outgrowing that and needed something that was going to be a little bit better for us. So we parted with it last year, and honestly, I got all my money back plus some from what I had in it. So it was for me, it cost me nothing to use it for 4 years, basically.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that little roller deal, how do you keep it from getting gunked up all the time? I used one last year, and that just become a mess.
Yeah, they'll kind of, you're talking about the little hand roller, Jonathan? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll happen. It'll clog up. And I mean, honestly, I never really concerned myself with it a whole lot. I mean, you can wash it out with some hot water or something if you needed to. We kept a couple of them. We only used them just to catch whatever the Simple Harmony Farms rollers did not catch. But yeah, I wasn't really super concerned with it, to be honest with you. We just kept going.
Now, Melissa, when you use that Simple Harmony decapper, did you feel like it did your frames, did do a good job on your frames as far as not only uncapping, but not destroying the comb itself?
Oh, yeah. The only, I guess, downfall to that is, when you use an uncapping knife, you cut all those cappings straight off, right? when you use that Simple Harmony Farms one, it just slices the capping. So it leaves all the cappings on there. It just slices them so the honey can get out when you spin it. So when you put those frames in your extractor, you are getting more wax debris that you have to filter out or set in a clarifier and let it rise or whatever you're going to do. So that would be the really only downfall to that Simple Harmony Farms. You're not cutting off as many cappings,
right?
And it's going to clog up your strainer or your filter or whatever you're going to be using when you're extracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the one downfall that I didn't like about it. It wasn't horrible, but that is a slight downfall. Yeah. But honestly, the thing worked well, Ricky. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with it at all. I mean, it seems costly for what that is, but like I said, I want to say it was 4 seasons that we used it, and in my opinion, it was worth the money. So whatever it takes to get the job done, that much faster is kind of what I was looking for. Like I said, I just felt like we were starting to outgrow that and needed something that was a little bit more friendly to our time.
And I think that's part of it. You start out like I had a 2-frame, 3-frame extractor, and then you kind of move up, and then you sell that, and you move up to the next section, right, or the next part that you need to make your operation even better, right, depending on how far you're going to go. So, and this to me was the next step that I had to have, because uncapping by hand was just taking way too long.
Yeah,
way too long.
Yeah, that can be a pretty manual process. This will help to slim that down for you, I think.
Especially if we're not able to guilt all the teenagers into helping us harvest honey.
Jonathan, how do you extract your honey at your place? Do you have your own extractor? What's your process?
Yeah, my first year I used predominantly foundationless frames and just used a honey press. And of course that destroys all your wax for the bees and don't get quite the honey yield. This last year, I done a combination. I crushed some honey, and then I bought a 4-frame extractor and spun some honey out too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does anybody's clubs do any extracting for them? So our club does in July an extravaganza where you can bring, I forget what the fee is, so many boxes for a $20-$25 fee, and then it's $10 a super after that, with a maximum of 6 supers, say. I can't remember right now. So does anybody else with local bee clubs do anything like that?
I don't know if anyone
will actually rent one out. Go ahead, John.
I don't know of anyone here real close to me that does that. I think there's a club around Ozark that does that maybe, but here locally we don't have one.
Our bee club will let you rent the extractor out, but you have to bring it back clean, of course. So, and that can be a fight in itself sometimes.
So our club doesn't have a physical address, I guess you would say. So there's no real storage unless somebody keeps it at their house. So we don't have an extractor per se for the club. So everybody we'll bring our extractor in, some other board members or club members will bring their extractors in, and that's what we use to do the extracting. But the local bee shop is the bees. She will rent out extractors, or she has an extractor in her shop that you can come use and for a fee or whatever it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it offers somebody a very cost-effective solution if you only have 1 super or 3 or 4 supers of honey, and you maybe don't have the budget or don't want to purchase that offers somebody an option. But I guess that's the beauty of living probably near a metro area where the population is a little bit heavier. There may be a few more options for people and resources available too. So,
yeah, and I think that's one of the things we want to do here when we open our store up is to give that an option. We're already going to have our honey room set up in the store itself, so that's one of the services that we can kind of help people out with. And we'll have our solar melters, so it's not like we have to do anything with it. It's just going to do its own thing. But I think that's a real good thing to have for people, and it's not to charge people a ton of money, but it's just those people that, why would you want to spend, $1,000, $2,000 on an extractor when you're only getting a super a year? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that probably wouldn't make a lot of sense for sure.
Lee brought up one of the little swarms that we caught. I wish they were all that easy.
No kidding, right?
Yeah. So
now, who are the two people out there? Is one of them you, Ricky?
Yeah, I'm the one with the dirty jacket because it didn't get clean from being underneath that double wide trailer. And the other gentleman was Brian. Him and his wife have several colonies, and God has blessed him sevenfold with swarms this year. I think he said that was number 15 that they have had, and they only had 6 colonies coming out of the winter.
Wow.
And he says he doesn't know where they're coming from. So, yeah. So he's tired of catching them. So he gave me a call twice this week to go pick up swarms off of him. So, and I appreciate it. They're very docile bees, and I was glad to get them in my bee yard. So
swarms are really fun to capture. I mean, generally speaking, and this is not all the time, but my experience across the board for the most part has been swarms really don't have much to defend, so they're generally pretty docile, right? The only one that I found that was a little bit more aggressive was when it was storming and raining and I'm climbing into a tree. That one wasn't so much fun, but anyway.
And then the second swarm, he had a cherry tree there, and they just kept swarming in that cherry tree. I mean, that's a beautiful little ball. I checked that colony today. It looked great. And that was on Tuesday, and they were really drawing the comb out. So that was a beautiful queen that was in that colony also. Because when I shook them down there, she just absolutely exploded to the top. And I started to clip her, but she ran right down into the box. So I was like, yeah, we're okay. So
yeah, that's what you need, is a nice little swarm from little boxes. Otherwise, you got too many bees in there.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But
hey, Ricky, it's kind of hard to tell how large was that swarm there. Would you say?
I would say that was close to 3 pounds.
Oh, okay.
I would. Yeah, it's bigger than it really looks. Because it was bigger than a pineapple. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
That gives you some context to it.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a pretty fair assessment. That's probably close to 3 pounds, about a pineapple.
Yeah, I'd say so. So
for sure.
But that's why I was asking you guys. I'm almost thinking about planting me just a row of trees in front of my colonies so that they're not flying in trees and they're just hitting these little bitty saplings, and I'm gonna have to climb up the trees to get them out. Do you see that, Melissa?
What's that? Sorry.
See what Brian put on there?
We're making matcha creamed honey tonight. I have not that creamed honey. That creamer that we got from Hilco at Nobby is still untouched. I just have not had time to do anything with it. And I think I want to redo my seed because I think the last time that I poured liquid honey into my seed, I must have not had it melted down all the way. And so it's now not as smooth as I want it to be. So I think I'm going to redo my seed anyway. So it's not, whatever. So I haven't even had time to mess with it. So I'm kind of jealous that I hear people making their cream honey, and I have not done anything with mine yet. She's been slacking.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, you use all the stuff you buy, right?
Everything.
She buys something, she don't even use it.
I'm telling you what, she's just spoiled. That's what it is, guys.
How's that honey pump bottling speed fill thing working for you?
I don't know. That's her department. We should ask her.
I didn't purchase
honey off yet, have you, Tom?
That's a great. You know what? She brings up a great question, guys. Let's get into this now. How is that working, babe?
I don't know. I haven't used it.
Oh, so he hasn't used it.
But he does.
Did you guys hear that? She hasn't.
I didn't purchase that, but somebody does need to use that because we have 3 bottling tanks downstairs. We have a light honey, our amber honey, and then our bourbon aged honey downstairs. So 3 separate tanks. Somebody, I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody, poured amber honey into the light honey tank. So somebody needs to pump it all out so we can get light honey back in our light honey tank.
It's a new blend, guys. Stay tuned. It's a special blend. That's what it is. It's all about marketing, right?
Yes.
See?
Hey,
Actually, so our room downstairs that we have the bottling tanks and all our glass and bottles and plastic and whatnot in is just like overflowing with everything. So I actually had the teenagers this last week pull everything out of that room. So it's all in our basement so that I can reorganize everything and get it more usable space. Because it was getting pretty jam packed in there.
How's that working out for you?
Well, space was cleared out.
Yeah.
I don't know how y'all have time to do anything. I don't see how you get it done.
I don't know either. I got up to the shop yesterday morning at 5 a.m. and fired up the wax dipping tank, and I dipped until just almost, it was probably 7:45. That's the tank that
so Brian wants to know, what was the question, Brian, that Brian put out there about the wax dipping tank? Is it our tank or
so
something like that?
Basically, the table itself was a larger table from a company in St. Louis that made granola bars. It's a full heavy-duty stainless table, and it had 6 legs and the roller is under it. If you look at the bottom, there's a black extension that goes underneath of it. We had to put an extension on there because when I started to figure out the size of the tank that I wanted, and how much, that was the original wax we used up there, that box called blended waxes. So I needed to, what I wanted to be able to get so much equipment inside that wax dipping tank and per dip. But I also wanted to not have any wasted space, because the more or the larger the space, or the larger the tank, the more wax you need. And that wax that I had to use to fill that initially was about $1,200. That's what it took to fill that.
It ain't cheap.
So yeah, it's very costly. So you don't want to be wasteful with it. So there is actually a burner that's built in underneath, which you cannot see. And it's a pretty large burner. Does a pretty good job.
Propane.
It is propane. Yeah. Again, it's difficult to see, but it is underneath the bottom. Yeah. There's a little shroud around it, and there's a line that goes out the back that goes to just a simple tank. The actual tank itself basically was, we cut a hole in that table, modified the table itself. A friend of mine who's a very good fabricator fabricated the tank. And that the tank is aluminum itself, because we saved a little bit of cost and not using stainless. I really originally wanted to use stainless, but he suggested that we use aluminum. It would be satisfactory. There was not going to be any problems with it, and it would be more cost effective. So that's why we have a stainless steel table, and the tank itself is aluminum. I don't believe I had more than $800 into the whole thing, because I got the original table, and it was a pretty large table. I think I paid him $175 plus the tank itself. And then, of course, the wax was another $1,200. So I had a couple $1,000s tied up in the wax dipping setup itself. But I'm certain that over the last 3 years or 4 years that I've had it, it's probably dipped at least 1,000 pieces of equipment. Most of those were mine up until the spring, when we had dipped a few hundred pieces for our club and some of the members of it. And then recently we dipped, yesterday morning from, again, 5 a.m. till 7:45 in the evening. I dipped another 280 pieces, I think. So, and most of those were mine. A few of them were a couple of friends, and some of it was for the Great Plains Master Beekeeping program too. So we were able to get it all knocked out, and I'm glad that part's over.
Well, and that lid, did you send a picture of it open? That lid actually has pusher bars on it to hold the woodenware down into the wax.
Right, because the wood will try to float inside there, so you need something to hold it down.
And then there's a grate at the bottom to hold the pieces up off the bottom so nothing gets scorched also.
Yeah, it holds it off the bottom. I learned that from, I guess, a Cayman Reynolds, I don't want to say failure, but learning experience, where he had something on the very bottom of the tank and it scorched the wood. So you need to hold it off the bottom of the burner tank portion, where the burner's at, by about a half inch. And I've never seen any browning on any woodenware that we've done because it was too hot there. So that seemed to work well.
And this, when we dipped yesterday, what temperature were you doing it at?
I was between 300 and about 315. And I actually did ours for 7 minutes. I know when I did the presentation at Nobby, he talks about doing a dip for 3 minutes. So I decided that I wanted it longer than that.
We were doing 15, so we cut it in half.
It takes a little bit longer. Again, I'm not a chemist here, so I'm not going to proclaim to be one. But I felt like the longer I was baking the wood, maybe the better penetration that I would get. And maybe it's overkill. Ask me in 20 years how it worked out and I'll let you know. But that was my goal in mind, in which we put the large investment into. That was 9% of our equipment is all wax dip. Melissa decided to paint the fronts different colors.
Okay, are we back?
Okay,
You're back.
Okay.
So Melissa does paint the fronts of the boxes, and just to help to minimize drift, since most of our hives are very close together on our stands. Pretty happy with everything so far. Everything's worked out pretty well.
So I do have to put out there that anybody who is wax dipping or wants to get into it, we originally got our wax from Blended Waxes.
Mm-hmm.
They have a proprietary bee box blend, which is microcrystalline and paraffin. They will not tell you what percentages of what, because it's proprietary, but whatever, it works fine. When I went to get pricing on it this time, it was still expensive. I can't remember how much it was a pound. Do you recall?
I don't recall.
But anyway, so at Nobby, we bought some of the Hive Guard wax from Jed Thorne because it was on sale, discounted with Nobby. So that's what we used earlier when we, added to our already mix when we dipped for the EMBA. And then when I went to go order some more here just a few weeks ago, I was kind of looking for prices on it. And if anybody wants to buy any, it was Myers Bees.
Myers Bees.
Myers Bees had the best price on it. So just FYI, if anybody wants to buy microcrystalline paraffin wax for dipping boxes, Myers Bees had the best price.
The only thing that stinks is shipping is almost as much as the wax. So like for 88 pounds,
it was about half the price of the wax.
We spent $300 and something for it.
And $100 of that was shipping.
Right. So a third of that cost was the shipping cost itself. So, what we'll end up doing is when we go back down to Nobby, I'll probably buy a few more boxes and hang on to it because our goal this next year is to do another fundraiser for the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association. So anybody's in the area, or Jonathan, you want to come up, bring some equipment up, be happy to wax it for you, buddy. And we'll probably do that in the early spring, probably in March, late March, beginning of April, when I'm not as completely swamped. So that seemed to work out pretty well. We did 2 different days for that, and it helped people out around the area. So we're glad to do that.
No. When is your conference going to be, Tom, up there?
It's February. We actually secured give me a second here. We secured a location. It is going to be February 7th for the dinner the night before, but the actual conference is going to be February 8th. That's Saturday. That's actually the second Saturday in February. So
how am I going to get all my boxes waxed dip, man, if you're going to wait till March?
Guess you'll have to come up and visit me in March then, I guess.
Bring them in February and then come back in March.
You can do that.
I'll just get all my boxes from Nobby with you guys. That's what I'll do.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Hey, then you send a truck too.
That's
right.
Hey, Tom, I'm afraid you'll be taking a semi truck back this year.
Well, hey, you know what? Maybe we can do that.
Yeah. So has anybody got any more questions for Jonathan? We did go ahead and pin to join the live chat if you'd like to, but has anybody got any questions for Jonathan tonight? And Jonathan, you're welcome to stay on and keep talking to us all night, brother. We've enjoyed it.
Well, maybe not all night. I got to go to bed at some point.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so what did we do?
Oh, Ricky, I have a question for you. So you talked about your store. You're going to potentially open a store.
Yeah, we're going to have the bottom part's going to be our basically our cut-in apartment, and then we're going to put a store in the top of the building. It's going to be 2 stories, so the bottom part's going to kind of be in the ground just a little bit, and the upper part will have the store and have our honey room. And we talked about maybe having a little area for doing like bee studies and stuff like that. But, I'm not going to be given the classes or anything like that. But we do have a master beekeeper that is extremely good. So that would give him a place to come and give some classes also. So if it's a 50 by 50, that's plenty of space in the bottom. And then it gives us a little bit of storage upstairs and with the store. So I definitely want to get into selling some equipment because there's really nobody around us except Miller's Bee Supply. And that's who Keith goes to. So, yeah, I mean, and there's no way, like even going back towards Tennessee, it's a long ways, like 2-hour drive. So we would kind of be in the middle, and selling equipment, I think, would be a good idea. Yeah.
So when is your expectation that you'll have this up and going?
It's supposed to have been done last year. we haven't even. It's dug out, but we haven't even put the post up. It's just been raining. You just can't do nothing. It's nasty out there. So I'm hoping when we get back from Mexico, about the end of June, 1st of July, when things dry out, I think that would be the best time to go ahead and start working on the building at that point in time. So.
Yeah, it'll be hot then, but you know what? It should be a little bit drier too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a question here for Jonathan. Maybe a couple questions. Let's see. This person says, I have a top bar and have not opened it in years. Are they still here? Requeen, should I open it or leave the bees? What do y'all think about that?
Well, does he have neighbors? Because the neighbors probably don't appreciate the swarms, especially if they get into their house. I would at least get into it to check it out, to make sure it's healthy.
We're always proponent so the one thing that we kind of preach within our the Eastern Missouri, that's more of a populated area. And this is my personal thought. If you're in a very populated area or you have neighbors that are anywhere close by, I personally believe that somebody should be a very good steward and make certain or try to do your best that the bees don't swarm. And I've kind of presented it from this angle. Most people, I don't want to say have a natural fear for bees, but when you ask somebody about bees, the 2 things they think about are honey and being stung. And often I find that when you educate people a little bit, they can become a little bit more soft and interested in bees and things of that nature. But it seems like most people, if you get to a point where you have a bunch of swarms and they get into people's houses and it's very costly for somebody to have them removed from their home. If that happens enough inside of a community, what I think will end up happening is you're going to see a lot of restrictions start to come down within communities. Everywhere, if you have in a larger area like St. Louis City, or maybe the smaller communities that usually surround these larger metro areas, they're going to start making rules for beekeepers, and it's probably not going to be to your advantage. It's probably going to be, you can't have any hives at all within the city limits of X, Y, and Z, or you can only have 1 or 2 hives in the city limits. They're going to limit what it is that you can do if that happens. Now, I'll also say, if you live out in the middle of 100 acres, 200 acres, 1,000 acres, I think it's your bees. Do with what you want. You're not going to be affecting anybody else inadvertently. So, I think that, again, if you live in any kind of community, I think you do have a duty and responsibility to make sure that, first of all, you don't have any bees that are aggressive. And then secondly, that you manage them well so they don't swarm. So that's my thought anyway on how that should play out.
I think you're right, Tom. It's being a good steward, and that's the things to think about. So, Jonathan, there's a question here. It says, now that you've been in bees for a while, is there anything you would have done differently?
The only thing I really have that comes to mind there is maybe started out with the long hives instead of all my 10 frame configuration that I have. The long hives just work so much better for me, and I think a lot of people that are in my situation, and even able-bodied people. I know my second year mentee that's working with me with Hive for Heroes. She enjoys the long hive, and she's completely able-bodied, so I think they're an awesome way to keep bees. You can't move them around like you can a 10 frame and go to a different out yard or anything, but if you're just keeping them in your own property there in your main apiary, that I think they're one of the easiest ways to keep them, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all look back at it and say, man, I wish I had done this, went down this road instead of the way I went. So I know where you're coming from, Jonathan. So,
Jonathan, have you ever been around or tried any of the AZ hives? I'm just curious how those work. If those
I
would
haven't.
be an easy one.
I'd like to figure out a way to keep them, but I had never found a way to just have a standalone hive. A lot of people, you got to have a building for put them AZ hives in, and I don't see it feasible really for me to have a building for a couple of them, really. If I could get one that I could put just on my hive stand there and keep it like that, I definitely would like to mess around with them.
Mm-hmm.
I've been telling Rick to build some of them.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, I definitely need to get Jonathan probably 4 or 5 more out there to him, and so he can fill them up with some bees. So. Charlie, how you doing tonight? If anybody doesn't know, Charlie has a live stream on Friday nights. Tim and Anna has theirs on Saturday.
Sunday.
Brian and them on Wednesday, and Grayson, I think, does Tuesday or Monday. So it's always somebody on, but it's good to have Charlie with us tonight. And like I said, he's on Friday nights if you want to go join him.
Yep. We're doing good. I mean, I've been in the hives. Well, we had clear weather Sunday and Monday evening. And I finally got all the new hives and new nukes and stuff, configuration and all that kind of stuff done where everything is the way they should be. All the mediums are with the mediums and all the deeps are with the deeps, that kind of thing. And had some queen issues here recently, but I happened to find 3 virgins on a frame and I requeened those. I still need one more hive I put a frame of eggs in that for let them to build their own queen. So other than that, it's pretty good. I mean, luckily this week they kept calling for rain for the whole week, and it sprinkled today a little bit, and the rest of the time has been clear. So the bees have been able to get out to get some poplar honey, and the locusts and the cherries are all done. The blackberries, I guess it is, they're in bloom right now. So I would say another couple more weeks and our season's going to be over with. And it's actually a couple weeks earlier, I think, this year, as far as the bloom goes. It doesn't seem like the heat. I mean, we finally got some hot, humid days here the last 2 or 3 days, but prior to that, it's been kind of sort of cool and of course a lot of rain, like everybody's been talking about. Mm-hmm. I know on my channel out in Ohio, Tennessee, all out through there, it's, just a lot of rain and all that. So that's what's happening here.
Charlie, I tell you what, I came into the house on that Monday, came into the house and looked at the observation hive above my head, and I said, they swarmed out. There's not even hardly a bee left in there. But they were all out gathering nectar. It's the first time they could really get out, and the whole colony was like, let's go, it's time. So
yeah, what just irritates me is like I always call it the locust rains. It seems like about 1 year out of 5 is the best year for locusts. And all the other 4 years is as soon as the locust starts to bloom, here comes all this rain. And it either rains for a week or it rains for on and off every other day, and it washes the bloom out, or it actually washes the petals right off the trees and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think
we hardly got any of our tulip poplar because it just raining and washing it all out.
And it used to be, or at least what I was told, is that the locusts would come in for a couple weeks, and then the poplars would bloom for a couple weeks. And now it seems like it's coincide with each other. It's all at the same time.
Yeah.
And all that.
It would just seem like it backed everything up. I mean, our stuff is just now bloomed out. So we've got this week we had poplar to pop, we had black locust that's almost going, and we have blackberry brush. There, everywhere is bloomed out right now. And so like everything doubled up all in this little time frame. So we'll have about 3 weeks of heavy flow, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, hopefully it won't rain on you, and you know, you can pile the supers on.
That's right.
And all that. I mean, this year for me, because I had lost about 50% of my production hives, I won't have the honey crop like I did last year, but hopefully next year should be better. I got fresh queens, and I rebuilt my apiary to where I went from 12 to 16 honey hives instead of, you know, for more maximum honey production, and reduced my nuke production down. So,
how many nukes did you end up selling, Charlie, altogether?
You know, one time I was selling at least, my game plan was 20 nukes a year, and this year was 10, you know, and everything comes in at one time, it seems like, and then I'm under pressure. And I get stressed out, you know, and it's like, okay, I need to get these nukes out the door before they hit the trees. And in the meantime, I know I'm going to get a phone call to go to Georgia to get a truckload of bees for a friend of mine who I help out every year. And it's like, I'm trying to get this done before this happens. And then, and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know, it ain't and then I get aggravated with that new beekeeper, or even some seasonal type beekeepers, where it's like, I need you, you know, when are you going to come and get here? And they don't get it. You know, well, I'll get there, you know, the bees are going to be on my schedule. I said, no, they're not. I said, you're on the bee schedule, and you better be there or they're going to hit the trees. And I said, my these nukes are slamming with bees and brood in them, you know, and, you know, when you got, and I'm feeding them with Apis biologic, and I got 4 to 6 frames of brood in there, a cat brood, and I hit them. I usually put 3 frames of cat brood in, or maybe a little bit of all stages on one of them, and then food and pollen. And it's like, you know, don't you mess around with these bees. I mean, get them, you know, take them and put them in your box today, you know, and stuff like that. I had one person come and try to get them here early. I said, look, the rains are coming. The weatherman says, let's say around 6 o'clock or something like that. And I said, can't you get here a couple hours early? You know, and now they ding-danged around and got there they got their bees about 10 minutes later. Here comes the storm, you know, and then they called me up a half an hour later. Well, is it okay to leave these bees in this cardboard box? And I'm like, I said, well, you know, I'm thinking to myself, you know, if you'd have got here a little sooner, you wouldn't have this problem. And
you know what you can tell them is they're your bees. You bought them. Do what you want with them.
What I did tell them, I said, put them on top of the hive. If it's raining, you don't want to get out there, and open up the front door on them, and let them come out so they don't melt and overheat. And people don't, you know, they don't have the experience to understand that.
Yeah.
And it's like myself. I had some bees, and I was, you know, he was a friend of mine, and I gave him an extra shake of bees in there. Well, that's, you know, by the time he got home 2 hours later, or an hour and a half later, they were melted. You know, I said, well, I'll replace them, because, you know, I actually took them. I said, I don't have them right now. I can get them. You know, I got one. He was too hot, 2 nukes. I replaced the one that year. And then the next year I went, and actually both times I went over and visited him, and I just took it myself, you know, make sure they had plenty of ventilation and everything.
So Charlie, you know, what's funny? You mentioned one thing that sometimes, like you said, people don't think about. A couple of things that I'll point out is, when you sell honey, it's usually it's a quick sale. There's a small amount of money that's made on each sale, but they're gone. There's not much explanation, right?
The sale has ended right there.
Ended. You don't have to babysit that, right?
That's right.
But the difference is when you sell bees, you are selling customer service. I will say that extremely loud, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
And I think it was you also were stating this, you were talking about this same subject. And it's like for every, it's like they want a verbal quick bee lesson on how to do all this stuff, and they should have had all this figured out before they got the bees.
Well, you're absolutely right, but that doesn't happen, but maybe 50 or 60% of the time from what I found. One thing I found is very helpful. If you just do a few, it's probably not a big deal. You might have to babysit a couple people. Some people will get them and be like, thanks a lot. See you later. That's great. They already know what they're doing. They already have a plan set.
Yeah, I had a couple, what was nice about this year was I had a couple customers, they were like 3 boxes a piece, and one of them, he's been at, he's got 20, 30 hives. So, all right, see you later,
That's an easy sale, right?
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. And then another one, he was pretty good at that. He's had bees for a couple of years, and he was getting them for his friend. And it was like, all right, see y'all later. And but then you get these other ones that got onesies and twosies, and they don't have a clue.
There are ways to minimize that, though. For example, the one thing that we found very quickly is that somebody has to prepay me a deposit for the nuke up front. We ask 50% down, and I'm just telling you, I ask $200 for a solid 5-frame nucleus box.
That's my price too.
That'll either come in a pro nuke or an easy nuke box, and 5 full drawn combs, a new mated queen with a beautiful laying pattern, because I am very meticulous about what I would let walk out the door with my name on it. I inspect them right before I send them out within a day or two of sending them out. So I will inspect every single one, Melissa or myself. If somebody doesn't want the queen marked, that's fine. But I will physically lay eyes on her, so I am certain to 100% that queen was in the box. I don't just look for evidence on something like that.
I'm like that too. When I'm transferring frames, I want to eyeball that queen, and she's in the box, and then all that stuff. And
another thing that you can do too is you can type up an email to all your customers who have either pre-purchased or buying, and it gives a very basic instruction of if you're transporting this out of a car, bring some sort of safety device like a laundry mesh bag to put them in, because ultimately they're your responsibility. If you hit the brakes and they blow off the car, this is a safe way to transport them. If you're doing
you
it in
can
truck,
go to
and strapped down.
What is it? Dollar General store, I think it is. You can go, and there is a laundry bag. I think it's 3 feet long, and it's for like $1.98 or something like that, and works great.
They work well.
They sell a bag at all the bee stores for that.
Yeah, but how much? How much?
Buy some of those, and then you upcharge. Well, I see you don't have any way to hold those bees, and I have some of these for sale.
We did that.
Yeah, but we talking about $200, but now if you get a pro nuke, well, there's $25 right there. $23, $25.
That's why you buy them at Nobby when they're discounted.
Yeah, buy them in bulk, buy them at discount.
Well, you can get them down pretty cheap if you buy a pallet of them.
That's what James McNally did. He bought a pallet of them down there.
Yeah,
$6. Yeah,
there they are.
You can get it for $1, less than $2.
Or if there's somebody else in your area that does the same thing, I deal with people around. We'll go in on stuff together. Be like, hey, I need to get this, that, or the other. You interested in going in with me? We'll figure out the transportation between the 2 of us or 3 of us, and kind of work that out.
Yeah, well, that's what I just did with frames. We bought, I don't know, about 10 cases of frames amongst 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 beekeepers and all that. But then you got like that Easy Nuke. I mean, they ain't cheap either. They're they're about as much as a pro nuke.
Just about. The prices of
And-
those in the last 4 years have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But luckily, in the last couple of years, I had a guy up the road here. He'd been into bees for quite a while, and he had bought a lot of nukes and saved all them boxes. He came down here last year, and I think I must have had 20 or 30 of them easy nuke box he gave to me. I'm like, yeah, I'll take them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's like some of these. A friend of mine, he sells a lot of the bees came in pro nukes this year. And the people say, well, do you want this box back? And I'm thinking to myself, are you stupid or what? I says, you got yourself a perfect nuke box here that you can repurpose as a nuke box, swarm catcher, all this kinds of stuff, even a toolbox for your tools going out into your bee yard, your bee brush and whatever you might want to carry along. And it's like, I don't know, people just don't think.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've had people say that too. And we're like, well, if you're not going to use it, you're just going to toss it. Yeah, bring it back. We'll use it.
Yeah, well, there's somebody else. I forget, somebody told me a story where the wife or whatever tossed, I don't know, so many pro nukes. I'm like, you know, you just threw away $100 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Charlie, when we're talking about nukes, remember I asked you about doing the sugar feed, and you gave me that recipe.
Oh yeah, the recipe. Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, it warmed up, so I did liquid feed instead, and I fed a swarm. It was a 1-frame swarm in a nuke box, and I went yesterday, and I don't know if we can pull the picture up. It was slammed full of bees. I had to put another box on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a sugar brick we were talking about, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's simple to do. You just, you know, like you say, get a paint stir. What it is it's 10 pounds of sugar and about 3/4 cup of water, something like that, and stir it up. That's a solid looking set of bees there. And stir it up, make a cake out of it, and then put it out in a sheet cake pan, and then you level it out, use a pin roller and all that stuff, and then score it. And then I put it in my warming box, but you can leave it sit there for 3 or 4 days and it'll harden up, and then you can make cakes.
And if you're running in migratory tops, but you're running like the top feeders like I run, those top, you just put on top. With me and Charlie discussed it. Flip that sucker over, and then you put your cakes in there, and put your migratory top on it.
Yeah. Or, you know, you can make a shim, you know, about 1.25 1.25 1.5 shim. I keep a bunch of them around. I mean, I when it came to like spring emergency feeding, I did the frame with the, what is it, 1/2-inch hardware cloth underneath, and then I used a paper inside it, and then you packed it full, and then I packed it full without paper, and the bees will go up there and make all kinds of comb and all this kind of crazy stuff, and it costs you a good bit of money, and time is the biggest thing to make all that stuff. And I just make a square shim and put that cake right on top of the frames, put the shim on top of the box, and put the lid over top of it, and you're done. And they'll, you know, it's direct feed and it's easy. So you're building a store / bee barn, I guess you'd call it.
Yep. I guess I'm going to try that, Charlie.
What's that?
I said, I guess I'm going to try that. Now, if I had that lumber that you have, that pretty lumber, oh my gosh, man, I could make some stuff with that.
Yeah, you know, you mean the barn siding or the that clear stuff?
All that pretty lumber you had inside your building, man.
Yeah.
Man, you had some stuff. Get some of that black locust, some of that black walnut, and make some beautiful hives out of it. Now that would be killer.
Yeah, that's expensive, but
but there's people that wants it, Charlie.
yeah, I like that one.
I know somebody who I live with that would like.
I like that electrical hive. That
Yeah.
I think those are killer looking.
Yeah.
It's still in our garage.
Yep. It's still in the garage?
Well, he hasn't had time to make a space for it out in the backyard yet, so it's still in the garage.
Oh.
So when things settle down, hopefully he'll be able to get out there and make a spot for it out with the other ones.
You know, you guys were talking about uncapping and all that stuff, and Jenny, Bruce, got that silver queen uncapping machine, and I'm like, why did it take you so long to go to that level? Because he's talking about 9,000 pounds of honey. I mean, that's a huge amount. I mean, that's what it was last year. I think he uncapped. And they had that simple harmony thing, and they're going up and down, up and down, up and down. And you had 4 or 5 people over here scratching and all that, and all and you had 2 spinners that were to hold 50 frames. And it's like, I mean, of course, I guess the building is the other guy's building, but still, they seem to work together. For that amount of honey, I'd have myself a small extraction line. The amount of money, or that what he's selling. But I would, I was like, like Tom and Melissa there. You went and you had 3 or 4 years of that, and you got over 100 and some hives, and you probably got over at least 100 or more supers.
Last year we pulled 129 supers. Now they weren't all completely full, but we pulled 129.
Yeah, but
and that was only off like 40, I think, of our hives last year, because we did a lot of building last year, so we didn't put supers on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but like you went ahead and got that completely automatic uncapper.
Right.
And I don't. What do you got? A 30 frame extractor or something?
I don't know. That's Tom's department. It's I think it's 18. I think it's 18 maybe.
That's what I got. But
I don't know. Let me look at it and I'll tell you. But Tom has been talking about, like, he's always thinking, like, what's going to be our bottleneck now? He's like, the extraction is going to be our bottleneck. So now he's talking about, like, getting another extractor from John.
It always is. I mean, you get the bigger extractor, and then it's like I've talked with like Brad up in Canada, and with Bob Walker, and all of the bottleneck is as the honey's coming out. If you use the little double screen sieves like I do,
we do that.
It chokes up, And if you're really running a tremendous amount of honey, that's a huge bottleneck. And then clarifiers, the problem with that is it takes 25 gallons of honey to fill that thing. Most of them, from what I gather, 20 to 25. Yeah. And it cleans the honey to a certain extent. It gets, it'll get the heavies off, but then seems like the best option that most big guys do. And I talked to it was Doug up in Canada. They got a Cowan extractor like Ian and all, but they got this huge tank, and they put their honey up in there, and they let it settle to the top. The wax settles to the top, and then they pour.
I think Mr. Ed does that too.
Yeah, he does that in 55-gallon drums and stuff.
Yeah.
And all that. And that seems to be the way most people are doing it, was with just letting them settle. And then I think a lot of it also with that, it sounds like to me that that it needs to be a heated tank in order for it'll settle faster, from what I gather.
Yeah, like I said, that's Tom's department. I let him figure out all that, because he's got to hook all that stuff up and whatnot. I know he got a clarifier from John at our conference, but I think that his plan was to extract it, and then I guess run it into the keep coming back. Run it into the clarifier and then strain it after that. I don't know. That's
Yeah,
what is your plan with the clarifier and the whole line that you're planning on doing this time? Wait, how many frames is our extractor? Is it 12 or is it 16?
The extractor?
Yeah, the spinner.
Oh no, it's 24.
24. And then he's
24.
wanting to possibly get another one. He doesn't. We don't want a bigger one. He just wants 2 of them.
Well, no, I wanted so we have John Hill's extractor, and I really like his warranty. I think he's got a good warranty. He really does, and they're a pretty simple machine. He has one that's a 32, I think it was, and I wanted to get one more so I can extract and unload at the same time, so I can have one slinging while the other one's back. Both of them will go into the clarifier itself at the same point. They'll just come in from the side. After they go through the clarifier, then they'll get pumped from there. Probably, I don't know if I'm going to end up straining it beyond that. I haven't fully decided. So a friend of mine here in our area actually has a similar setup with the pump and all. And I've been trying to make it out. He's been doing some extracting. I've been trying to make it to his place this week. He's texted me and saying, hey, I'll be here until this time today, because he also has the license automatic uncapper. So I wanted to kind of get an idea of how to set it up. He said things have been working really good, but I did realize today. So if anybody has John Hill's, I believe that's their some certain heated bottling tanks and also the clarifier. There's certain ones, if you look for an email, a couple of them have a recall where the heating element can
it
was overheating and could possibly scorch the honey. So there's a little small issue with it. He's getting them fixed right away. So if you have one of those, check an email or maybe go to his website just to check that, because it was kind of a safety issue there. I haven't used mine yet, and it's still sitting in the box as a matter of fact, but I haven't checked mine yet to see which one it is, which heating element I have, to know if I need to get the new one shipped in, but I'll be doing that here shortly. But anyway, so I'm going to be pumping, or both of them are going to be going into the clarifier. And I thought about getting a strainer system to go with that as well. But I hadn't decided, and it may be a little bit of a trial and error for me, just to decide what is the most appropriate, because my goal is I'll spend a little bit of money if it saves me a lot of time, so you're either going to spend more money and save time, or you're going to spend less money and it take longer. So it really depends on somebody's operation and what your goal is. If you have more time than a budget, then you would probably work towards something that's a little more budget friendly. Whereas, if you are extremely busy and working several hours a day, maybe now you want to take some of that money and invest it into something that'll save you some time. So I think that really depends on each and every individual, and what you're looking to do. So my goal moving forward is to save more time. That's the reason I've made more purchases. Not that I have more money, but again, I'm trying to save more of my time.
You got a pretty good size operation though. It kind of goes in hand to hand.
That's right. You're right.
After the clarifier, you were saying a strainer system. What, do they got something after that?
So I don't know that John himself has it. So I would have to bring in a different. So I'll give you, for example, Maxant. I really like Maxant, but the reason I didn't go with a Maxant is I don't want a chain uncapper. I was pretty adamant about not wanting it.
Yeah.
That's the reason I went with the overseas. I would like to keep it here in the United States. I'm a really big fan of local, and I'm a really big fan of USA equipment. I'll spend more money for both of those. But again, there's a point in which, you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons based upon what piece of equipment you're looking for, just like any industry. It doesn't matter if it's honey extraction or it's landscaping or whatever it might be. So we decided to go with the license price point for what you get. And I'm not saying at some point I won't sell that equipment and buy something that's more of a light commercial, if you will, setup. But for right now that I'm working in my garage without an actual honey house, this is what we decided to go with, something that didn't break the budget, that I would be willing to spend the money on. that stays fairly compact because I don't have an excessive amount of room for storing either. At some point, maybe that'll change a little bit, but for right now, that's kind of where my goals were at and what I was looking toward. But Maxent has the, you can use a pump in between and pump it up through these mesh bags. And then, it goes into whatever storage device, buckets, drums, whatever it might be. So I was considering that, but I don't know 100% that's the direction I'm going to go. And I really wasn't liking to piecemeal everything together, but that's kind of what's happening here. So,
well, like you say, if you had a honey house and you had more, let's say 200 boxes of honey or whatever every year, it's like I was saying about Bruce Jenny. I'm looking at his volume of honey that he's doing and everything. And now the honey house is somebody else's, I believe, but I would consider one of them $25,000 mini lines.
Yeah,
that is all one shot, because he's talking about the amount of stuff that he's doing. I mean, his first pull was, I think he said it was 37 buckets.
Yeah,
which and I, that's what I would have done. I mean, there's enough money coming in from the honey to pay for all that.
Yeah, they say buy once, cry once, right?
Right.
So I mean,
Tom buys all the time, and I just cry in the corner.
Charlie. Don't let her listen. Don't listen to this gal. She's kind of a manipulator. She's the one that started this whole thing, Charlie. You know that, and I know that too. And then she's gonna act like she's gonna act like this. She's trying to play the victim here, Charlie. Tell her it's not cool.
Well, it's like extractors. I mean, some folks, they start out with something small, and it's like I always tell or ask people when they're talking about buying, let's say, a bigger extractor or getting into this. I said, depends on, are you going to stay in it for the long haul, or or is this just a new idea and it's only going to last 2 or 3 years type of thing. And it's like when I started out, I got into it. I took a class just to kind of get the idea of what you're up against type of thing. And then I went ahead and bought a couple nukes, and it's grown from there, and I liked it. And I happened to be able to buy a guy out that had a Maxent, I think it's a 6-frame extractor, I think it was back then. Still is today. They redesigned the basket, which are better. I kept that for so many years, and then I went from 6 to 18 frames, and it works for me. And I used to use a 5-gallon bucket for uncapping tank, which it worked, but it didn't work. And then I actually had bought a steel uncapping tank, but then it was damaged. And I think it was right before COVID or right after COVID when I got it. I think it was right before. And so I went ahead. I got to, and you have to know like you say, if you don't have a dedicated honey house, then you got to look at something that's got to be portable.
That's right.
Where are you going to store it at on off seasons? Because you're only going to use it, let's say, 3 weeks out of the year.
That's right.
And so I wound up buying I bought the Hive Butler, but because I had that the handy uncapper, which snapped onto the 5-gallon bucket that you put your frame in, and it holds for sliding around, because I use plastic. It had the slot and the hole for the ear. So I still wanted to use that. So what I did was I took the Hive Butler, I put 2 wooden frames in there, and then I screwed the handy dandy uncapper platform to those 2 frames, those 2 wooden frames. So now I've still got the same platform, but now I got a double thing for my uncapping tank, and it works fine for me. And I have to take and unclean it out and put the cappings after they get kind of real nice and dry, put them in a 5-gallon bucket, and I take them out to my solar wax melter and let it, it'll melt in a day. And
Yeah.
and,
Those
it,
solar
and that, it works for me. And then I also have when I bought that guy out, he had a Maxant honey plane, and I still use that. It
Yeah,
works.
the solar wax melters are absolutely amazing. I love them.
Yep,
It is.
that's mine.
Yep.
That's what is that mine?
That's one of those. That's one of those things where you can put wax in a solar
Yeah, that
wax
is.
melter, and you can walk away from it. It takes
Yep.
you no time. You
No
just
time, no money.
yeah.
Yeah,
there's
that's
no
my
money.
setup.
Just
you
walk
know.
away. And I mean, I'm telling you what, the wax, the color of the wax that comes out of these solar wax melters, you'd think that you have to like clarify it 2, 3, 4 times.
I
You-
usually
you
clean it
honestly
one more
don't.
time. I usually do it one more time because so much honey gets mixed in with the wax.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
other than that,
It's amazing how well they work. If people have enough wax, I'm saying John Hill has one that's very cost effective. It works fine. I have
3 of them.
3. Yeah, we have 3 of them now. And I'm telling you, you can render so much wax through them and it takes you no time. Put it in there, let it melt down, come back and clean it up. And then you might render it one more time if you want to purify it.
I have
Right?
to say we have 3 of them because we were doing so many cutouts that we were just
Yep.
getting like if you just have your own hives, you do not need 3 solar
No.
wax melters.
One I got, there was a guy that was building them, and I had him build mine.
Mhm.
And like you say, all you got to do is put 1 sheet of cheap paper towel in there as your filter.
That's it.
I have a screen, like a 1/2 inch or I guess it's either 1/4 inch screen or 1/2 inch screen in there as used to be the filter. And then I put that piece of paper in there, and that stuff comes out nice and yellow.
Beautiful,
And
yeah.
clean.
It's gorgeous.
I have to say,
Go ahead, Melissa.
no, go ahead, Charlie.
And then I got a video on this. I did a friend of mine, Nancy Tasker. She's up in Pennsylvania. She actually works for the Dirt Rooster. And that's my unit there. And it has legs fold and everything. And you can put that thing away like a
That's nice.
suitcase. Huh?
That's nice.
That's nice.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
good.
that.
I like it.
And she said, and I always take a paint heater, paint heat gun, and to melt the wax and stuff and the black slum gum off of my queen excluders. She said, put it in that wax melter, and that wax melter's just wide enough to where I can put it in there and close the door. And if it's 90 degrees and hot and sunny, 4 hours, those things are as clean as a whistle.
That's right.
And I mean, it's like I used to sit there for hours in the evening, waiting for the stuff to heat up and all that and melt off and then scrape and all that. Shoot, you can put that in there. If it's not all that hot, you can put one in every day and it's clean.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a little bit of wax out of it too.
Sure.
And that really,
Jonathan, do you get enough wax to do any rendering with, or not too much?
I've messed with a little bit. Way we do it is just on the top of the stove in a pot.
Yeah.
Boil it out.
Sure. Yeah, something simple.
Something simple, yep.
What about you, Spanky? Do you have to do any of the wax rendering?
I went and bought a $3 crock pot from a secondhand store.
Yeah,
that
works.
Double broiler. I wax those little foundations, so I need something that I can put them in. So I need something that I can do it when I want to do it.
I didn't go get a $3 one. I just used Melissa's. Don't tell her, okay? The food's been tasting a little waxy lately, guys. I don't complain because I don't cook it.
You just eat it, right, Tommy? You ain't worried about it.
I ain't worried about it.
No, what I was gonna say though is you guys are talking about like buy once, cry once, or whatnot. And if you're backyard beekeeper, you're just gonna have a few hives in your backyard, and then you buy like a smaller extractor, and then because you get addicted, you get more hives, and you need a larger extractor. Bee equipment resells for pretty much the same price that you paid for it.
Yes, it does.
So even if you buy something smaller, don't be afraid to list it on Marketplace or something like that, because we've never lost money on selling bee equipment.
Mm-mm.
Ever. So
Have
I've
any
got
of
a
you ever used the little pot that Man Lake sells with a spout on it?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I use. I have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Should work
a
pretty good for
all
you.
it is a Teflon coated electric food pot,
that's like what you
Mm.
made downstairs with the.
and you can
Oh,
actually
yeah.
you can actually bore a hole in it yourself and put that spout on there. But
Tom did that to one of
Yeah, I actually bought one of those, and I made my own. I've never used it, but I wanted to make my own just to do it. So
Well, you need to put a different spout on it. He's put a spout on it that comes straight out. It needs to curve down.
Mm-hmm.
So
What was you saying, Lee, man?
They was talking about buying equipment and then being able to resell. I have the 20 frame data and extractor, and I think when I bought it in 2020, I wanted to say it was like $1,900 and something for it. That same extractor now they want like $2,900. So it's done went up $1,000. If I was to get out of this, I could sell that for what I paid for it, get all my money back out, and somebody would still be saving $1,000 off
Oh, definitely.
regular
Yep.
price.
You would sell that in a heartbeat, Lee. I guarantee if you sold it for $1,900, that's about a 30-something% discount. Somebody would buy it, hands down.
well, even this spring you sold that uncapping tank in that Simple Harmony Farms uncapper for at least what we paid for it, if not more.
Yeah, it was a little more than what I actually had into it.
My cousin just drove 6 hours for a 30 frame. I can't remember what he said it was. Extractor, and they drove 6 hours to the beach basically to pick it up today, and they drove all the way out there to get it because it was at a really good deal, which was still like $1,000, but it works great. It said it was back in the 80s or something like that. And they drove all the way down there to get it, so really heavy duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
there it is.
Yep.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
don't
you can
think-
make your own. You can make your own for a lot cheaper.
Yeah. If you're handy, I mean, go buy that same little melter pot and make your own for much cheaper for sure.
Yeah, I think it was like $50 when I bought it. But no, I use that. I'll take the wax and remelt it, and then I'll filter it, or actually I filter it, and it's like I just these, what is it? The 1 pound foam molds. They want crazy price for them. I went to the grocery store and got, I think it's a 4x8 inch bread loaf tin that's got the non-stick surface, and I figured out. Well, actually, I kept filling it until it hit a pound on the scale, and then I took a pencil and marked it. And then it came out to be like an inch below the rim, and I can get it within 2 or 3 ounces of a pound, and I just let it. I got a bunch of them, and some of them happened to be on sale, like half price, and I poured my wax into them, filtered, and then I either sell it or I reuse it on frames and stuff. I kept some of it here this year, and I did some rewaxing of some drone frames and stuff like that, and all that. So
Yeah, there's always a cost-effective way to your rendering wax or what you're doing. You don't have to buy the biggest and best of everything. You can always, repurpose something, for whatever fits your budget. You don't have to go out and buy a $300 wax melter or what have you. You can do something on a smaller scale. And then if you decide that you, like Charlie said, that it's something that you're really getting into and it's working out well, and maybe you're making a little money at it. Maybe now you reinvest to save some time. So
yeah, it's I've scaled. I don't know. It's like every business, about 5 years it takes you to kind of get up to where you want to be, and you can scale up, and then you can actually start making money and that kind of stuff. So my honey sales have really jumped in the last year, and the one guy that gave me them boxes, he went out of business, and so he's been pointing everybody to me. So it's been worked out well. So that's why I scaled up my honey to be able to produce more honey.
Yeah.
I think
I think that's why.
Randy the Dirt Rooster's got a good video of using Elizabeth's crock pot, I think, for wax melting.
It was hers, huh?
Randy.
Oh, I think I remember that actually.
Yeah.
I think now that you say that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky melted all his wax down and sold it.
Yeah, I did. I sold all mine at the expo. Actually, every bit of it that I had, I sold everything.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Some lady come and wanted all of it. So,
wow.
What was it? You're selling the hives or the wax?
The wax, selling half-pound wax bars that I did from my solar wax melter. They bought every bit of it. They loved it. So.
I tell you what's nice about the solar wax melter is because, like, when we do these cutouts, we get a lot of brood comb or nasty comb that you don't want to bring in the house and melt down, because that stuff is not pleasant smelling when it melts down. So that's one of the nice things about the solar wax melters. You can throw all that nasty, dirty comb, and then it turns out nice, bright yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're getting the brood comb that normally we don't use for wax cappings, right? It's brood comb.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of wax from that. People will be surprised how much wax you get from brood comb.
Okay.
Right now, I think that we've got like at least 4 5-gallon buckets full of brood comb and wax that we need to render down. Tom keeps threatening me because it's starting to stink. It's like, if you don't render that soon, I'm going to pitch it.
It's sitting up at the shop, and the other day she says, boy, those cicadas are really starting to stink. I'm like, it's not cicadas. I'm like, and she's like, yeah, it is. And I'm like, uh-huh. So I went up there today, and we were moving some gravel around, and I needed to grab an extra couple buckets to put at a location. So I grabbed those buckets, and I dumped them out, and it smelled like death. And so I filled them up with that, and I said, hey, if you want your wax, it's sitting back there in the gravel behind the shop. I'm like, if it's there late next week, it's getting yeeted into the woods. So you better deal with it.
Now, all that has been sitting a while, so I probably won't put any of that in the solar wax melter. I'll put that in the turkey roaster thingy-majobber and boil that down and pour it into some buckets and render it that way.
Well, Melissa, you need to do a video on that. And if anybody doesn't know that Tom and Melissa over here, they have their channel going now. So if you haven't subscribed, I know I
actually posted some videos.
Yeah, they got some videos posted. So there it is. Lee just posted. Go over there and subscribe to their channel. So I'd appreciate it.
One of the videos is of that massive swarm that we hived a couple weeks ago. So that's a picture of a cutout we did on Saturday. This was in a really super nice house out here in the St. Louis area. And we went there a couple weeks ago with the FLIR camera to find out where this hive was located in the house. We could see where it was coming in on the roof line in this dormer window area. But when we went inside the house, there was no heat signature anywhere. And, it's coming in the roof line. So Tom originally cut this hole in the ceiling there. Because that's the logical spot that you'd think it would be in, right? And when he pulled the insulation back, there was just a few bees up there, right? There wasn't, but no comb. You couldn't see any comb. So then it's like, well, I guess we need to do some inspection holes. So he drilled a hole on the other side of this wall is a closet, a bedroom closet. So he went in there and drilled a hole in the wall. And what did you see when you drilled the hole in the wall?
Well, there was a dead space. This is a pretty large house. There was a dead space between the closet and then this 2x6 wall, which had plywood sheeting on the outside because it is a dormer. So they sheeted the outside of it. And for whatever reason, now, first of all, too, another thing I'll note too, is that's 5/8 drywall. So it's fire rated drywall. And I don't know why they did all the walls like that, unless it's all they had at the moment. But anyway, for whatever reason, I couldn't get and I was really surprised. I'm still a little bit baffled. I couldn't get the FLIR camera to see through to the heat signature on there, but there's also a piece of comb there that was probably 1.5 inches or a little bit thicker, and it was nothing but a wall of honey.
So
it must have been masking between the 5/8 drywall and that was masking the heat signature. And I couldn't, when I determined coming in from the top side, looking down, I could see there was a 1/4-inch gap is all it took for the bees to sneak into that wall cavity. And I'm like, they have got to be in that wall, even though I didn't see the heat signature. And again, I went ahead and opened up that top half. That's why it goes into the next stud space. And I'm glad I did that because there was a small gap for them to climb over to the next stud space. So when you start vacuuming and moving, they try to move over into an area that you're not disturbing. So you have to kind of run them around a little bit. I don't use the bee go inside of a house, but I was using, if you use something like
this is Bee Quick or Honey Be
Bee
Gone.
Quick or Honey Be Gone. That's a little more sweet smelling, but the bees don't like it. You can run them around a little bit and keep them corralled in a certain area. And that's kind of, yep, you can see it hanging right there. I got a squirt bottle of it. And
but at the top of that picture, you can see how thick that honeycomb is. Where it was like an inch and a half or so thick. Wow. that it was just insulating that heat signature that we couldn't pick up on.
So Steve asked Tom, was the sun shining on that wall sometimes mask the heat signature? And that was something I thought about. So when I hit that with the FLIR camera, it was not, because that was on the west side of the house and I was doing it in the morning pretty early. So the sun wasn't beating on that wall. That was another thing I was thinking about too, is sometimes when it gets to be summertime, we'll try to locate the colonies. I really early in the morning when I do an inspection so that I don't have to worry about the sun itself masking signature on something. So I great point to look at that. But I did.
Must have froze up.
We're back.
There we go.
So yeah.
Now, do you have to close that wall back up for the customer?
Yeah, I do.
And the
Yeah.
ceiling.
I usually
I insulated everything. I sealed up the space so the bees couldn't get back in there. And she's like, well, can you go inspect the rest of the house to see where, make sure there's no spots? And I said, ma'am, these bees got through a 1/4-inch opening. I said, you know how many 1/4-inch openings you have in your house? I said, this was a huge house in a pretty prominent neighborhood. I'm like, I'd probably be here for 3 weeks trying to seal up spaces. And I'm like, you might not still get them all. I said, the bees are really good at finding a little cavity or space that you would never know existed until they find it. Right. So I'm like, it might be difficult to do that. So,
and anytime we do removals, we plastic off the area that we're working in so bees can't fly about the house. And we put drop cloths down on all the flooring and, anything that honey and other nastiness might get to. So that's what it looked like when Tom finished.
So I despise mudding and taping and painting. And I worked that out with the customer well ahead of time, exactly what it is we'll do and what we won't do. And she has somebody that does a lot of handyman work around there. And she was more than happy to give him a call. So this is stuff that we talk about, be very thorough about what it is that we're doing and what their expectation is and what our expectation is and what we'll provide, and make sure to hash all that out. So she was extremely happy to have all that, even that part done. I said, I'm not going to leave the opening there. I did fill that space up with insulation as well, just to fill a void, even though it wasn't necessary in that wall. I did put insulation back in there because now we have bee smell inside there. And I did a pretty good job of sealing that whole space back up so the bees could not get back in there, but I didn't want to leave any opportunity for them to come back. So,
and we did find the queen.
We did find a queen. Yeah.
I heard.
How many cutouts do you guys do in your area there?
It depends. Last year I probably did 20 something. And that was just kind of on a part-time, it's not obviously my full-time job or anything, and this year it's been pretty difficult. I've had to turn down a lot of calls because I've been a little bit short-handed with my landscaping work and extremely busy with that, as well as all of our colonies. And stuff.
That's what I was going to say. How do you get enough time to do all that?
So
Charlie, you do it by working 16-hour days. That's how you do it.
So that was our second cutout this year so far, I think, or third.
I don't remember,
but we have 2 or 3 scheduled for to do over the next couple of weeks. We're trying to just because time is we've been so busy with the bees this year. We're trying to do like maybe 1 a week, scheduling them like once a week. So
now I've got a contract paper if you ever want to use it that you can give to the customer, and it gives a list of stuff that you will do and won't do. And if there's something that I say I will do, I'll just mark through that part and initial it and have them initial it.
Yeah.
I've actually got some contract papers that I use a lot of times when I do my cutouts. So I'm always scared to be just that one person to kind of give you a hard time, you know.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that, Ricky. That's 100% fact. I think being very thorough about what it is that you do, and paperwork always helps to seal a deal for sure. Like with my landscaping work, everything's done by contract and signature. That way, if they come back and say, well, this, that, and the other, you can just re-email the contract and be like, this is what it states, you know?
Yep.
So that is a wise idea for sure. I haven't done that specifically on this, but I'm very thorough about my explanation of what to expect, what we will do, what they're expected to do, if anything. Sometimes, like if I'm pulling siding on the outside of a house, they may not have to do anything. It's just when we go from the interior, I despise mudding and taping. I can't stand it. And I don't want to paint. So, and I have a couple business cards from a couple of local people who will gladly do that work for them too. So I can provide them with an option as well if they need it.
And I also got a paper from my bee association calls me all the time for cutouts, right? So they wanted a disclaimer from them also.
Yeah.
So that when I give that paperwork to the customer that's called the bee association, not only can they not come back and get me because this is the list, but they can't come back and get the bee association who had me come out and do the job, right? Yeah. So it kind of covered them also.
Sure.
You know what always kind of surprises me with all these cutouts that we've done is I don't think one person has ever asked us, which we are, but I don't think one person has ever asked us if we're insured.
Yeah. That's true.
Which like shocks me because I wouldn't want somebody cutting into my house, you know, if they're not at least insured, you know.
You know, what's funny is we gave a presentation earlier this spring on cutouts and my experiences with it and such. And that was one of the things that I made a point to drive home like 4 or 5 different times. And like, if you are doing these cutouts, it is extremely wise to carry insurance. If you hit an electrical outlet and cause some arcing inside of a wall or nick a gas line or anything like that, and you blow up a $2.5 million house, pretty sure most people don't have that kind of liquid capital sitting around in the lockbox, you know? So I'm not messing around. I carry insurance. And specifically on my insurance policy, it actually disclaimers specifically cutouts. So they can be fun though.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's 10:23. I think I'm going to call it a night. It was definitely a great conversation. Jonathan, brother, I do appreciate you being on tonight and talking a little bit about your disabilities and your honeybees and the things that you're doing at your apiary. And, we definitely need to get out and see you again sometime. And, I do appreciate everybody in the comments. You guys are always awesome. I really enjoy reading what you're talking about and posting what you're saying, especially when you're giving Lee a hard time. That was great tonight. And anyway, for the most part, we just want to say we appreciate y'all. God bless. We'll see you next Thursday.
Good night, everybody.
All right. See you.